Welcome to Tenacity with Sonia C., the podcast where entrepreneurs, founders, and ambitious professionals come to learn from those who have walked the path, navigating challenges and achieving success. Whether it's thriving in business, pivoting, scaling for growth, fundraising, or finding work-life balance, dealing with loneliness, adversity, or overcoming personal struggles. Our guests share the insights and strategies that have empowered them to level up. I'm your host, Sonia, and let's get started. My guest today is Peter Bonney. Peter is the CEO and founder of Vendorful, a platform that's simplifying and accelerating complex B2B procurement. If you've ever wondered what it takes to build and scale a SaaS startup, especially with limited resources, then this episode is for you. Peter shares his journey as a two-time founder, navigating the SaaS journey, scaling smart, and how his AI tool is making the procurement process easier for companies. Hi, Peter. How are you today? Welcome to the show.
Thank you very much, Sonia. I'm doing great.
Awesome. I'm excited to get into this conversation with you. Before we get there, can you tell us a little bit about your company, Fast Break, and what it does?
Yeah, so we help companies automate the process of responding to repetitive questionnaires like RFPs and security questionnaires. We use our customers' existing content, which could be completed documents, it could be policy documents, any materials they've got, marketing materials, their website, whatever it is. And then when they get one of these lengthy questionnaires that they have to respond to win business, we help automate that process and then also build in collaboration so they can bring in other experts in their organization. But the main focus is trying to reduce the amount of time that people actually have to spend looking at these things and just focus them on the ones that are new and interesting and not so much all the rote stuff that they've answered a million times.
That's so funny you say that because we respond to RFPs all the time. One of our core businesses, that's how we get majority of our projects. And I've actually recently been like, I think I need to hire somebody full-time just to do RFPs. It is such a tedious job. How do you guys solve that problem? How do you eliminate all that work? Can you walk me through that? Because I might have to use your software.
Well, I've yet to meet a person who says, yeah, I really love RFPs. They're the best. So here's what we do. So if you respond to a lot of RFPs, then you've got a lot of completed RFPs that you can draw on, right? And that probably covers the majority of the information you'd ever have to provide about your business, right? And so what we do is you would load that information up into FastBreak, and our system builds kind of a knowledge map of all of that information about your business. And then when you receive a new RFP that you need to complete, we look at your existing content and all the, kind of understanding that we've built up around it, as well as the new document that you've got and all the questions you have to answer to complete it. And we basically just try to fill in as many of those questions as we can. It doesn't have to have seen the exact question before, right? It's using AI to synthesize information. So if you get a software business, if a software business, somebody asks a software business, where their data centers are located. Well, there might be a specific piece of information in their database that, or in their content library that answers that. If they ask to describe your unique selling proposition, there may not be an exact answer to that, but there is probably information in their marketing materials and other things they've uploaded that the AI can use to synthesize a decent, unique selling proposition. And then, the salesperson or the proposal manager, whoever's doing it, can go through and review it and say yeah, this is a good draft. I'm going to tweak it this way or that, and just turn them into editors as much as possible instead of having this big blank page, which is just so time consuming to start filling out.
Okay, I have so many questions, so much to talk about, but I just want to say, for people who don't go through RFP or RFI processes, it is the worst thing in the world. The documents are massive, especially like government ones. I feel like they almost designed them to make it impossible for you to be able to close or get that project, right? It's almost like they're making it super complicated. I don't get the point why, but I love the idea that these are massive documents. Usually if I'm going to be in doing an RFP, like I know that I need to book off 2 weeks from doing any
Hmm.
work because I'm going to spend
Hmm.
my full time for two
Hmm.
weeks is going to be just reviewing, reading, and trying to get this RFP out.
Yep.
And we are in the software business. So
Okay.
it's very, so the AI, like you download the RFP from a government website or wherever it was
Hmm.
available, and then the AI just goes through it and matches the information that you have. Is that sort of how it works?
Yeah, so it works particularly well for things that are in kind of a question and answer format, which,
Mm,
most RFPs are. And yeah, it goes through and, for each question
mm-hmm.
provides the best answer that it can, and then just kind of keeps going through the whole document until it's done all of them. Now, RFPs can kind of run the gamut. I mean, there are ones that are like more narrative style, like it's
Mm-hmm.
just open ended, like, hey, give us a proposal. Um, and that's not really our focus. There are other
Mm-hmm.
products out there that I think kind of just help you write like a nice narrative, and they're great. Where we really shine is with these really lengthy questionnaires where there's a lot of just kind of repetitive questions and answers that you've got to
Yeah.
fill in. One of our customers just, I'm this is going to sound like I'm making this up, and I'm not. They just completed
Mhm.
a questionnaire which had 6,800 questions. I mean,
Wow,
yes,
6,800. See, that's an RFP. I'd be
yes,
like, I'm not doing that.
yes. Well,
There's no way.
so they're in an industry where they basically have to complete these lengthy questionnaires in order to compete for business because they go on these
Yeah.
it's a health insurance company and they go on these annual cycles where they have to keep their information up to date with the intermediaries that kind of control access and make
Mm-hmm.
recommendations of on health insurance providers. And so, yeah, 6,800 questions. Now that's including like all the elements in a data table, and there's a lot of data tables to complete. But
Yeah.
6,800 pieces of information that a person would have had to provide previously, and the vast majority of it was answered automatically. And then they just had to go through a lengthy process of kind of reviewing everything because it's big company, so
Mm-hmm.
there's a big review process. We estimate it probably saved them somewhere between 1,200 and 1,600 person hours, which is a lot.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask, how much time did you actually reduce? So
Yeah.
it's more
I mean,
than
so that's,
50%.
yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you like the number of people, there are, I think, over 100 people that were involved in that response because it was so big and covered so many different subject matter
Mm-hmm.
areas. You have 100 people spending, a couple days, plus, like the proposal managers, spending several weeks on it. That's,
Yeah.
that's like the better part of a year of, kind of employee time spent just on
Yeah.
this one response. It's crazy.
So what made you want to start Fast Break? Did you just wake
Well,
up one day and say, I see a problem, I'm gonna build something? Clearly not, right?
so I partly contributed to the problem, and so this is my second startup. And my first startup was called Venderful, and it was and is it's still running, and I'm still an advisor to the company. It's a solution in the procurement space. We help companies uh, manage their suppliers, select suppliers, collect information on their suppliers, and part of that is running RFPs because
Mm-hmm.
the RFP is, as much as everyone complains about it, from the buyer side, it is the best solution that anyone's come up with to the problem of like, how do you make a really informed purchase decision for something that's expensive and
Mm-hmm.
complicated, right?
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, if you don't have some structure around it, you're just kind of putting your finger in the air. And so, yeah, so Vendorful helps companies respond to RFPs. And my co-founder and I started that in 2016. And at the time, I have actually got some photos of like the early whiteboards that we put up and some old notes. And I've got a picture of a kind of brainstorming about like an RFP response product. But at the
Mm-hmm.
time, like the technology just wasn't there. natural language people. You needed to be like a real serious hardcore expert with a ton of data in order
Mm,
to do the kind of like understanding of text that would allow us to automate the response process in the way that we wanted to do it. So we
mm,
just kind of set that aside, was sort of back burner, like, oh, maybe someday we'll get around to that if we build up enough data. Um, and then we eventually exited that business. Uh, and now, in kind of a post ChatGPT world, all of those language problems, all that, kind of information analysis, turning unstructured data into, usable information to complete a questionnaire, that's all available out of the box. And so we
hmm
thought like, hey, now's the time. Like, let's do it.
Yeah, I love it. And so this was your second startup. You exited from the
Mm-hmm.
first one.
Mm-hmm.
And what was it like starting that again?
um, you know, I have learned about myself that I really enjoy this phase of development. So, we're back to being a 5-person company. It's early stages. We're supporting big customers, but we've got like a small team and it's growing.
Hmm
Everything is kind of urgent and important. Everyone's got to, sort of do everything themselves. We're inventing it as we go. Um, I've learned that I really love this part of
Mm,
the life cycle of a business, the creation phase, the 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 part where you get a new customer and you're never quite sure exactly what's going to happen because they're all going to use the system in a different way than you've anticipated.
hmm
And each piece of customer feedback is just so valuable and so important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it's great, honestly. I really like it.
Yeah. The procurement process is, I call it like old, like it's
Hmm.
outdated.
Hmm.
I don't even think now with AI, I'm sure people are sort of Googling, but how do you get your clients?
Yeah, so I think most people find us through Google, and we can see. Okay, that's all right. I'm gonna answer this in two parts. So most of our customers, our best customers, the ones who've been the stickiest and the most engaged, they find us. They're out there looking for a solution to this problem,
hmm
and we fit the bill, and they try us out. They like it, and it's a good fit, and those are our that's our main customer base.
hmm
We've tried some outbound sales. Hasn't worked that well for us. We've gotten a couple of customers that way. They've tended not to be great customers. They're, I think I think there's a real difference between somebody who has a big enough problem that they've
hmm
said, I'm going to undertake a process to solve this problem, versus
hmm
somebody who's like, oh, this is interesting, like thanks for calling, I'll try it out. So
hmm
so most of our customers find us. The interesting thing in the AI era is literally just over the last 2 months, we're starting to see more and more of our web traffic come in from these so-called answer engines. So we see more traffic coming from Perplexity, from ChatGPT. Now, I mean, Google is still hands down the number one source, like
hmm
by a mile. But ChatGPT and Perplexity have now overtaken Bing, DuckDuckGo, even LinkedIn. So
mm
the world is changing, and it is
Yeah.
interesting. We can see from our site traffic that the way people find out about software in general is changing every day.
Yeah. Yeah, that's so interesting. Um, like companies like ChatGPT are going to be pivoting, I'm sure, over time
Hmm.
because they could be making so much money on ads and that's something they're not doing now. But you're right. I've also noticed that I have like a couple of inbound things that came from like ChatGPT, but I never
Hmm.
really pictured ChatGPT as like an engine to
Hmm.
search and yeah, you go in and you ask it a question, it gives you an answer, but I never really thought that it would go the way it's going, right? But that just goes
Hmm.
to speak to the power of AI and how it keeps evolving over time.
Hmm.
I just never
Yeah,
thought it would get to that point.
me either, exactly. And I was a little bit skeptical about this whole I think that the term they use is answer engine optimization business
Yeah.
that's kind of emerging, just like search engine optimization has been a big thing for a long time. Uh, just by coincidence, I think it was last week. I was at a dinner here in New York with a bunch of other tech founders, and I had a conversation with somebody who's actually in this business, in the answer engine optimization business,
Okay.
and he convinced me that this is a real thing, and it is. It has all. We've already made some changes to our website to try and optimize for this a little bit. I think the biggest thing you can do, just I'm going to do a poor job of summarizing what he told me, but I think the biggest thing you can do is add a conversational question answer flow
Mm,
to a document, because if you think about what like ChatGPT or Gemini or Google summaries do, is they try to identify the common questions that people are going to ask, and the conversational flow of those questions, and then
yeah.
sort of provide that to their users. So like the example he gave me is like, if you want to ask, somebody might start by asking, what's the biggest mammal on Earth? The answer is the blue whale. Then a natural question might be, where does the blue whale live? Blue whale lives in, such and such oceans. What does the blue whale eat? And kind of going through like a process
Mm,
like that. And anyway, yeah, it's definitely a different way of thinking about your content and how to structure it. But I think the people who invest in that, I've come around to believing that it will make a difference to how people find you.
yeah. I mean, we're still trying to figure out Google and that whole SEO and
Hmm.
ads, and now something new comes along. How are we
Hmm.
supposed to keep up?
Yeah, good question. Everything is constantly changing, and it seems to be changing faster all the time, and I don't know the answer to that.
Yeah. So with your AI tool, you're
Hmm.
reducing time, effort, you're helping making that process easier. What's the future look like with AI? What are your plans to continue building out the tool?
Yeah, very good question. I mean, AI itself is changing so rapidly, and one of the
Mm-hmm.
interesting things about building an AI product that relies on commercial AI tools is that we're making use of these capabilities from OpenAI, Anthropic, and Google that didn't exist several years ago,
Mm-hmm.
but we're also kind of competing with them because, like, if you think about what these models can do versus what they could do, say, a year, let alone 2 years ago, there's a lot of tasks that you can do with ChatGPT now just by interacting with it that,
Mm-hmm.
a couple years ago would have required a whole kind of software solution built around it, right? Like just asking it
Mm-hmm.
to, like some the obvious example was it used to be that there were like a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, there were products where you could load in like a PDF file and interact and ask questions about it, right? Because you couldn't do that natively in ChatGPT. Then a few months later, you could do that in ChatGPT, right? And so
Yeah.
that entire industry is just wiped out. And so I don't know that we're going to face the same existential risk because it's a pretty niche use case. And I don't know if ChatGPT will ever be great at completing RFPs. But I will say that if you're patient with it, you can do like a B, maybe B plus job. If you're willing to
Mm.
upload your data to it. So, it's a really interesting time. I do think that what we're going to see over the next several years, and what we are interested in doing, is kind of leveraging some of the deep thinking capabilities that have come out
Mm-hmm.
recently,
Yeah.
and probably adding some additional modes of thought to our system so that like maybe the baseline RFP response goes through the process it goes through, but then sort of doing a pass through where we
Mm.
look at the response that we've generated and
Yeah.
have our AI ask itself, should I go deeper on any of these things, and then maybe kick off to a more
Yeah.
powerful model. But we're very early R&D stages for that.
You probably can't answer this question, but I'm still going to ask it. Do
Sure.
you think that your your customers that are using your tool have a better chance of winning that RFP by using your tool?
I do think so, actually. Yes.
Darn, I'm going to use it.
I'll tell you why. It's not because we are doing, it's not because of what we're doing in the sense that I don't think that we are doing a better job of answering than they would themselves. What we're doing is we're letting them spend less time on the things that aren't going to make a difference to them winning and focus more of their energy on the stuff that's actually going to move the needle. So, like, good
Mm,
example. Like, if you're in the software business, you've had to, probably answer a million times, do you encrypt your data in transit and at rest? Right? The answer is
yeah.
yes. Like, there is not a single company in the world that is not encrypting their data. Like, that's been the case for at least 10 years, if not longer,
Yeah.
right? And so, but you still have to answer that question. And answering that question, and then the 100 or 200 other questions that are like it, where the answer is obvious, it's still mental overhead. It's still taking your time. If you, are the person who's tasked with answering the question is not technically minded, they might actually have to go ask somebody else, and you're taking that
Yeah.
person's time, right? That is all taking away from the time that you could be spending focusing on like the 10 questions or however many it is in that RFP that the buyer's really going to look at and really think about, right?
Mm,
And they're going to base their decision on. Um,
yeah.
and because you're spending less time there, you might be rushing it at the end. And so you're not able to bring in, you know, insights that you've gotten from the conversations you've had with the customer to like, oh, I know that they're really concerned about, um, I don't know,
Mm,
integrations. And so like, rather than just answering integrations, I'm going to like add some extra emphasis in here and talk about the specific systems that I know they care about and some of the things that
hmm.
are like customer stories that are relevant to that, right?
Yeah.
That sort of stuff will actually make a difference to winning the business. So maybe a more succinct way of saying it is like we believe our customers are good at their job and we want them to
Hmm.
be able to do their job and not just be filling in these long documents.
Yeah. Do you think the AI will ever get to the point where you put a document, an RFP document in, and it sort of goes through the whole thing, but it will emphasize on the areas that are really important that in the actual RFP that the customer should be focusing on?
Yes and no. So you've described some stuff on our roadmap that we want to add. Like because here's an interesting thing about sales in the modern era. So many of our meetings take place like in this format, right? Over
Yeah.
Zoom, and those meetings are almost always recorded now. And so
Yeah.
there's a lot of information in those meeting transcripts, but there's a lot of noise too, right?
Mm,
There's a lot of pre-processing that you have to do to get the nuggets out of it. But I do believe that uh, within not years, but within months, we're going to be able to make use of that kind of information to enhance and kind of shade the responses
hmm.
to an RFP in the right direction. Having said that, I think we're pretty far away from the point where an AI, just based on some Zoom transcripts, is going to provide anywhere near the level of insights that a highly competent salesperson or proposal
Mm,
writer is going to provide. I
right.
don't think we're there. So yes, in the sense that those insights will come in and help kind of direct the content, but I think we're very far away from the human being out of the loop there.
Yeah, I get it. I mean, you mentioned something which I want to talk about, roadmap. So
Mm.
I
Hmm.
work with a lot of startups. So I do
Hmm.
mentoring and
Hmm.
consulting for founders that, want to build something or are building
Yep.
something and are stuck. And I always find this one pattern. I work with a lot of founders that are in the MVP stage,
Hmm. Yeah.
and I'll start working with them and I'm like, okay, how long have you been building your MVP?
Hmm.
And I'm expecting like 3 months, 6 months, and I get like a year or two, and I'm like,
Hmm.
whoa, you've been building an MVP for a year,
Hmm.
and then the consistency or the consistent problem that I find is they start the MVP with the
Hmm.
purpose to get it out, but then they want to keep building, and then like it's almost the MVP is not an MVP. They end up building a
Right.
full product. And I don't think people understand the whole roadmap process, right? Like you
Hmm.
could never build, especially software, you can never build a full application that's 100%
Hmm.
usable or has everything that you want. So can you walk us through a little bit of your
Sure.
roadmap process?
Yeah, well, so I mean, the MVP stage I think is interesting. I'll focus there, right? Because
Yeah.
later on down the road, like now that we've been in the market for about a year and a half now, and so at this point, our roadmap is really dictated by what we're hearing from customers and
Yeah.
prospects,
Yeah.
and which is a different stage, right? So let's go back to the MVP. I'm going to give you a couple examples of what we didn't have in our product when we launched it.
Okay.
Um, we did not have billing. So we've since evolved. Actually, we've actually changed our go to market. We're now focusing on larger companies. So actually, like payments is less relevant. But when we
Yeah.
started, our initial hypothesis was that we were going to be selling to kind of small and mid-sized companies. They'd be paying with a credit card, and we just said, you know what, like we'll figure it out later. Like, let's just get this out. So, like, even though we knew we wanted to collect credit card payments, we launched without that. Like, everybody who could sign up, they were signing up for a free trial. At the
Yeah.
end of that free trial, there was no way they could pay us when we first launched. um, and we just said, you know what, like, whatever, we'll give ourselves 30 days, and like, in 30 days we'll have built payments. But like, let's not wait on that. Let's just get it out.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I think that's an example, right? Like, what is the bare minimum functionality you need to be able to put out there so that you can start getting feedback? That's the
Yeah.
most important thing, right? And so I think the way we came up with our roadmap initially was we came up with all the things that we wanted to do. Then we pared it down to what are the things that a commercial product has to do, and then we pared it down even more, right? Like
Yeah.
what is the set of things that uh, even if we accept that our product is actually not fully commercially viable in the sense that, like, I don't know if anybody will pay for this without these
Yeah.
features, but what is the bare minimum that we have to get somebody to try it,
Yeah.
right? That's it. And like it's just paring it down, paring it down, paring it down. Um,
Yeah.
I love to keep in mind the old. I mean, this is what, I forget how many years old at this point, but the lean startup adage that if
Yeah.
you're not embarrassed by your first product, then you waited too long to
Ah.
to release it. Like,
Yeah.
yeah.
No, I get your point. And it's so funny you said that because I've been working with someone recently and we had gone through a list of things that I'm like, this is what you need to focus on. Your product's built. Now you want to get that first client. Here's a list of things for you to work
Mhm.
on. And he sent me a text message during the week. He's like, I had this great idea. I think I should build this, and that, and then market that. I'm like, wait, is it built? He's like, no, but I could build it in like a month. I'm like, why? Just
Yeah.
go through the list and finish the
Hmm.
things that you're supposed to be doing so you can get that first client. I think that people miss the importance, especially tech people, miss the importance of customer feedback and
Hmm.
building features based on needs, not because it's cool. I
Hmm.
have a product that we sell to the food service industry, and our roadmap is 100% based on what the industry is asking us for. And I
Hmm.
remember in the beginning, well, last year we were putting together a roadmap for this year, and we had put on, we're going to build some AI, and I actually built out, instead of having a board of directors, I have a
Hmm.
board of directors with my customers. So all my
Okay.
enterprise customers become my
That's
board.
great. Yeah.
And so we
That's so
reached
smart.
out and we said, this is like a list of things that we want to build next year. And they're like, we don't want AI. I'm like, what do you mean you guys don't want AI?
Mm.
Like, they're like, no, we need this, and that. Cause
Hmm.
that's gonna help us. That's gonna make our jobs easier. And that's going to allow us to get what we need to keep our products flowing. And I'm like, okay, so AI is not necessarily for everybody right
Hmm.
now. People just want to be able to get their jobs done right. And AI
Yep.
can help with that. But the value of having your product out in the market and having that feedback from a client, I think is
Hmm.
completely like that's the way that every founder should go on a obviously a tech product is different than,
Hmm.
a physical product that you're selling,
Hmm.
but you getting that fee, well, it's same thing with food, right? If you
Hmm.
get it out there to 50 people and 25 tell you it tasted horrible or tasted like, chalk,
Hmm.
you know that there's something wrong with your product, right? That
Hmm.
feedback is really valuable.
Well, even with physical products, like, so there's this company based in New York. I'm based in New York. I happen to just by coincidence meet the founder of Light Phone at a meetup sometime, and otherwise I never would have heard of it. And I followed it since
Hmm.
then. And I think they're about to release a new version of the product maybe in the next couple of months. They're working on their I forget if it's the second or third version, but
Hmm.
the earlier versions didn't do as many things as their customers needed it to do. And I think that they knew that based on my
Hmm.
my brief conversation with the founder, but they wanted to get it in the hands of people so they could start collecting that feedback. So they had this idea that like, okay, like we want this. I don't know if you know what the light phone is. It's the idea is it's kind of like a somewhere between a dumb phone and a smartphone. It's like the
Okay.
bare minimum smartphone. It's got like an e-ink
Oh.
display. It's supposed to be less, less distracting. It doesn't have, social media on it, but you can like see a message on it and see an email and maybe like book an Uber, right? Like that sort of stuff, like
Mm.
walking that middle road. And there was a set of stuff that their first version or their last version didn't do. Uh, but rather than wait until they could do all of it, they're like, well, let's just get it out. And our customers will tell us which of these things they actually
Yeah.
need and which are the things that like we just think they might want. And sure enough, that's, that feedback is now reflected in the new version of the product that's coming out. So even with a physical product, you're going to go through life cycles. Like
Yeah.
get the minimum thing out as fast as possible and get that feedback.
Yeah, love it. We're running out of time, but before we
Mhm.
go, I wanted to ask, I always like to ask the question, what was one failure or
Mm.
valuable lesson that you learned along the way? I mean, I'm not going to say that it was just for Fast Break or your other company because
Mhm.
you pick one.
Sure. Well, look, there's about a million failures, right? So I'm constantly thinking about all the things that I did wrong with my first company, which it turned out fine, but
Yeah.
I think could have done better. There's always things we could have done better. And one of the things that I know, looking back, that I did wrong, that we did wrong, is we went too broad, too fast. We got
Mm,
interest from a wide range of customers, and rather than focusing on a narrow slice of them and that where we felt we were the best fit, we added too much stuff to appeal to too many people,
ah,
and kind of ended up with a product that was both a little bit hard to manage because it did a lot of things, and also wasn't really exceptional at any one thing. It was good
mm,
at a lot of things, but it wasn't like the leading product in one specific area. And so I am going 180 degrees the opposite direction this time around, and that will probably also be a mistake in different ways.
mm,
But I'm focusing on as narrow a set of ICPs as I can. I am going as narrow and deep on the product as I possibly can. We get the
mhm,
occasional requests from people to kind of, well, can you expand to leveraging our content to do this other task? And my answer today is no, we cannot. Like I am going to stay 100% focused on RFPs and RFIs, security questionnaires. That's what we're doing. And we're not doing like marketing. We're not going to help you with like making PowerPoints or whatever, even though the marketing materials are all in our database. That's
yeah.
not what we're doing. And so, so far it feels better to me. It feels more comfortable to just be like super, super narrow. Um, so yeah, that's one lesson I've learned, and I'll let you know in a couple of years if I went too far.
Yeah, I mean, I love the idea of like you do what you do and you do it really well because you're not trying to do everything else. I've made that mistake many times too. We have a piece of
Yep.
software that like some clients are like, "Oh, you don't have enough," but most of our clients
Hmm.
is like, "This is too much. It's a lot."
Hmm.
Right? So we've
Yep.
had to like strip it down and build it in modules so we can turn things off because clients get
Hmm.
really intimidated when they see way too many features.
Hmm.
So
Yep.
building something out with too many things can be a problem too. It's like you can't win.
Totally. Yeah, no,
You either don't
totally.
have enough or you
Totally.
have too much.
Totally. I think a rule of thumb that I'm trying to follow now is like I'm not going to build a feature because I heard somebody ask for it.
Yeah.
I need to hear multiple people ask for it. And
Yeah.
then maybe there's something there.
I think that's a good rule of thumb
Yeah.
to have. Well, Peter, thank you so much for joining me today. This was a lovely conversation. I love what you're doing. Fantastic work. And yeah, thanks for joining me.
Thank you so much for having me, Sonia. This was a lot of fun.
Awesome. I want to thank Peter for joining me today. If you have ever been through the procurement process, this episode is filled with valuable insights. We discuss everything from scaling a tech company to innovating in the B2B procurement and what it really takes to navigate the SaaS startup journey. And that's a wrap. To our listeners, thank you for joining me on this journey of learning, growth, and inspiration. Don't forget to subscribe to this podcast on your favorite platform and connect with our community on social media. I'd love to hear your feedback, so leave a review and let me know what topics you'd want to explore in future episodes. Remember, the future belongs to those who embrace challenges, adapt with tenacity, and keep pushing forward. Keep growing, keep pivoting, and most importantly, stay tenacious in your pursuits. Thank you for tuning in, and I look forward to bringing you more insightful conversations in our upcoming episodes. This is Sonia signing off, but as always, keep chasing your dreams with tenacity.